A slow and intense fire swept across the residential complex of Wong Fuk Court in Hong Kong, sending thick columns of smoke into the sky and setting 8 towers ablaze. What began as a small blaze on the outer scaffolding quickly escalated into one of the most severe urban fire incidents the city has faced in recent years. Reports from local authorities confirmed that at least 44 people lost their lives, more than 300 residents were unaccounted for, and dozens suffered injuries as the flames continued to advance through the densely packed structures. For hours, the fire spread without interruption, casting an orange glow across the district and forcing nearby communities into a state of emergency. The blaze was first spotted shortly after 2 in the afternoon when a resident passing by noticed a section of scaffolding igniting on one of the towers. Flames climbed the outer frame within minutes, fueled by dry construction materials, and strong gusts funneled between the buildings. Emergency calls were placed immediately, and fire services arrived as dense smoke poured from the mid-levels of the structure. By the time the first units reached the scene, the fire had already jumped to neighboring towers, turning the cluster of buildings into a growing field of heat and falling debris. As the afternoon progressed, the fire continued to intensify. Videos captured from surrounding streets showed 7 of the 8 towers burning simultaneously, each engulfed by thick smoke and sporadic bursts of flame. Residents on nearby rooftops watched the fire race upward, consuming scaffolding and exterior panels. Inside, temperatures rose rapidly, creating conditions too hazardous for entry teams to penetrate. Fire crews attempted multiple approaches, but each attempt was slowed by collapsing materials, narrow access routes, and extreme heat radiating from the buildings. Winds blowing between the towers pushed the flames into new sections of the complex, driving smoke into stairwells and corridors. Firefighters sprayed continuous streams of water toward the most active fronts, but the exterior scaffolding fed the fire faster than suppression teams could slow it. A deep red glow remained visible long after sunset, marking the locations where heat concentrated at the upper floors. By nightfall, the fire had burned for more than 8 hours, and 7 towers remained in active combustion. Inside the complex, many residents found themselves trapped on upper floors as smoke thickened around them. Several of those residents were able to contact fire services, reporting that hallways were filled with smoke and staircases were blocked by falling materials. Responders instructed them to seal doors with wet towels, close windows, and remain in enclosed rooms away from the smoke. Some families signaled for help by waving cloths or shining lights from their balconies. Others sheltered behind makeshift barriers while ash drifted through ventilation shafts. Emergency teams worked to guide people toward sections where evacuation remained possible. Lower floors were cleared first as crews focused on hallways that were still structurally stable. By late evening, approximately 700 residents had been escorted out of the complex and moved to safer areas. Many of them left behind their homes, belongings, and pets as fire conditions worsened and access points closed off. Outside the towers, the scale of the response grew as night deepened. A total of 128 fire engines were dispatched to the scene, along with 57 ambulances positioned along surrounding streets. Nearly 767 firefighters rotated between suppression work, rescue attempts, and containment operations. Around 400 police officers assisted in securing the outer perimeter, rerouting traffic, and managing evacuated residents. Firefighters used high-reach ladders to aim water streams into the upper floors, but the extreme heat inside the buildings pushed rescuers back repeatedly. Falling scaffolding created additional hazards, crashing onto lower roofs and narrow courtyards below. Each collapse sent clouds of dust and embers into the air, complicating visibility for responders. Crews concentrated on creating safe lanes for movement while monitoring structural integrity across the 8 towers. As search teams attempted to locate those still missing, the number of unaccounted residents continued to rise. Narrow corridors and blocked stairwells prevented quick access to many areas, forcing responders to rely on thermal imaging, drone footage, and visual signals from windows. The interior temperatures made it impossible to enter for extended periods, requiring frequent rotations between crews and slowing progress across the affected floors. The surrounding community felt the impact of the disaster well beyond the immediate fire zone. Thick smoke drifted across neighboring streets and parks. Schools and nearby businesses suspended activities as ash settled on vehicles and building entrances. Several bus lines were rerouted and sections of the district were cordoned off to prevent injuries from falling debris. Local shelters prepared to receive evacuees, many of whom arrived with limited belongings and no clear timeline for when they could return home. Communication lines remained busy throughout the night as families attempted to contact relatives living inside the complex. Officials released updates periodically confirming casualty figures and providing instructions for those seeking assistance. Hospitals across the city received patients suffering from smoke inhalation burns and other injuries linked to collapsing materials. Medical teams expanded their capacity, preparing for additional incoming cases. At the national level, the incident drew immediate attention. Chinese President Xi Jinping conveyed condolences to the families of those who died in the fire. He emphasized the need for a comprehensive effort to control the blaze, reduce further loss of life, and support those affected by the disaster. Directives were issued to local authorities to mobilize all necessary resources and coordinate closely with emergency units already on site. The severity of the incident prompted extended monitoring from weather and safety agencies. Officials warned that the fire could continue burning in isolated pockets due to remaining scaffolding and structural debris. They advised residents to avoid the area entirely and to follow evacuation or shelter instructions provided by emergency personnel. Even as firefighters worked to contain the fire, smoke continued to rise from several towers and structural integrity assessments were scheduled for the following days. As dawn approached, responders remained positioned around the complex, continuing their efforts to locate survivors, cool remaining hotspots, and maintain safe zones for search teams. The long duration of the fire and the scale of the damage left questions about when full containment would be possible. Several towers showed extensive exterior damage, and sections of scaffolding continued to detach from upper floors. Emergency crews prepared for continued operations through the coming day, with rotation schedules set to maintain continuous pressure on the remaining fire zones. The full extent of the destruction inside the 8 towers will require detailed inspection once conditions allow. Early reports indicated significant damage to residential units, structural components, and shared facilities across the complex. Utility lines were compromised, leaving large sections of the area without electricity or water service. Engineers began preliminary evaluations of surrounding infrastructure to assess safety risks for nearby residents. Officials noted that updates on casualties might take several days as rescue teams navigate damaged sections of the towers. Families of missing residents awaited information from authorities while shelters and support centers coordinated accommodation, food distribution, and medical care. Emergency hotlines were opened for those seeking information on loved ones or assistance with temporary housing. As the situation continued to evolve, authorities urged the public to rely on official updates and avoid speculation. They stressed the importance of staying clear of restricted areas and following guidance from fire services and police. Crews planned to maintain a significant presence at the site until all active fire zones were extinguished and structural risks were addressed. The event left Wanghuk Court and the surrounding district in a state of shock. The long, burning towers, the large-scale evacuation, and the high number of casualties marked the incident as one of the most severe urban fire disasters the city has recorded in many years. The path toward recovery will depend on continued search efforts, structural evaluations, and coordinated support for displaced residents. Further updates from emergency authorities are expected as teams progress through the damaged structures and conditions stabilize across the area.